You understand, I'm thinking about that there. You know, Jim, the way things are, the next generation has got a right to ask just where this country's headed. Here's the way I begin. What makes America great? Is it the rich soil? The good earth of Africa and Russia is just as rich. Is it our resources? In China and South America, just as valuable treasures of coal and minerals. Is it our people? Perhaps. But remember that we Americans, or our forefathers, once were aliens who came to this country from other lands. And whether they landed in 1620 or 1820, or what ideal fired them with and got for a straight so can't finish it. Don't just seem to know the answer.
Well, Sam, if you don't, I guess nobody does. Your folks have been around these parts for 300 years. Been running this for more than 100.
Maybe the answer is right there.
Say that it contains 1 million square miles, and that in its vast area are rocks and rills, woods and templed hills, lofty mountains that raise their peaks above the plain. The Rockies and the Appalachians, the Adirondacks and the Alleghenies, the Sierra Madres and the Catskills. There are the 5 Great Lakes. There are rushing rivers, the Mississippi and the Missouri, the Ohio and the Columbia, the Susquehanna and the Sacramento, the Potomac and the Delaware, the Hudson and the Arkansas, the Cumberland and the James. Within its borders, the temperature ranges from 40 degrees below zero in the north to 120 degrees above in the south. But it takes more than weather and land to make a country great. It takes more than just space. Why, our good neighbor Brazil is bigger than we are, and so is the Dominion of Canada. On the other side of the world, more than 1 million square states, and Russia is nearly 3 times bigger. No, it can't be the richness of the soil, the bounty of our natural resources. It must be that America was made great by Americans. Yes, we are great because of our people, the little people and the big people, the 135 million of us who make up this mighty nation. The Greeks have a word, demos, that means the people. From it we get our word democracy, government by the people. Freedom, that is what our forefathers wanted. Of course, there are forms of government, such as plutocracy, meaning government by the plutocrats or the very rich. They didn't want that, and we don't want it either. There's autocracy, government by autocrats or dictators, and we certainly don't want that at any price. And there's bureaucracy, which is government by bureaus or departments, and we're not going to trade democracy for that either, that's sure. No, sir. This country belongs to the people, the American people. From the beginning, we got along pretty well with that system, and we're not going to change it now. We'll stick with the sure thing that gives all of us an equal chance.
Article 1 of the Bill of Rights. Congress shall make no law abridging.
In this democracy, a free press is guaranteed under the Constitution. And we Americans will always resist the enemy who would curtail that freedom. Periodicals and books circulate throughout the country, carrying the stimulating stream of fact and fiction, of comment and opinion, so all may read and thus understand the world they live in.
Article 1 of the Bill of Rights. Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or the right of the people to assemble peaceably.
Any enemy that denies to a man or a minority the right to speak according to the dictates of his conscience and his convictions.
In this debate, I'm reminded of a famous sentence that hangs on the wall in my office. It says, "I wholly disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it." That's the way it always has been here in America. That's the way it always will be.
Article 1 of the Bill of Rights. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof.
The Pilgrims who landed on the stern and rock-bound coast of New England in 1620 came in search of religious freedom. They wrote in the compact signed in the cabin of the Mayflower that the perilous journey was undertaken for the glory of God and advancement of the Christian faith. And so steadfast are we today in that same belief that every coin minted by the United States bears this confession of faith. In God we trust. In the day of persecution, when godless enemies would destroy the church and the believer has no place to lay his head, in that day shines more brightly the torch of liberty, a beacon and a blessing, the symbol of freedom. In the short period of 150 years, the average life of an American has almost doubled. Back in the early days, the average lifespan was only 35 years. By the turn of the century, it had increased to 49 years. And by 1940, the average American could look forward to a lifespan of 62 years here in this America of ours, the land of the free. Our youngsters are better fed nowadays. They get more milk, and mothers know about calories and vitamins. We thought that the soldiers of the AEF in the First World War were a husky lot of lads. And 25 years later, our soldiers of the Second World War averaged 2 inches taller and 15 pounds heavier. Along with our increasing knowledge of hygiene and diet have come astounding advances in medicine and surgery. For most of us, the representative of that science is the family physician.
Well, you're much better today.
I'm so glad. And so are you, young lady.
She's just a different child, Doctor. I had no idea that medicine would cure her so quickly.
She'll be up and out of doors by the end of the week. You see, we have to work fast to keep ahead of those pesky bugs. Just think, in my time, I've seen the development of X-ray, radiation, diabetes, and more recently, the sulfur drugs, blood plasma, penicillin, to mention only a few. Then, too, industry is stretching out a helping hand to the handicapped, trying to find jobs for our less fortunate fellows, to help make them self-supporting and to keep them self-respecting. Them as we fight are always with us, for their dirt, disease, ignorance, and malnutrition. The battle never ends. Well, anyhow, here was an invasion that we licked.
You don't know how grateful we are, Doctor.
One of the bulwarks of the American way of life is the public school, so typical of a democracy. There is no place here for the regimentation that teaches children to hate their neighbors and to strive for a world that they will dominate by force. Here, our American teachers wage war against a cruel and powerful enemy, the enemy of intolerance, whether racial or religious or economic. We have no ruling class in the United States and no lower class because 150 years ago, our forefathers, declaring their independence, made a solemn pledge.
We hold these truths to be self-evident.
We hold these truths to be self-evident.
That all men are created equal.
That all men are created equal.
That they are endowed by their Creator.
That they are endowed by their Creator.
With certain inalienable rights.
With certain inalienable rights.
That among these are.
That among these are.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Call it a machine age. Say that we're a nation of realists. We still have time for great music that makes life richer. We have built museums and galleries to house art treasures of all the world. As evidence of a national economy that is both healthy and wealthy, we beautify our cities and towns with inspiring sculpture. To that towering giant of a man, the fitting tribute. In gratitude to the rare soul we know as Abraham Lincoln, this noble fane was erected to hold forever sacred the great heart of the man who gave his life
that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.
There is beauty in our skyscrapers, those vertical cities of stone and steel and glass that have their counterpart nowhere else on earth. There is a clean and efficient beauty in our factory buildings, where so easily are wrought the daily miracles of streamlined production of the world's best manufactured goods. There is beauty in the graceful sweep of a vast stadium, beauty along the shores of our two oceans and the Gulf, and in the vacation lands of the mountains, where the sun is bright, the air is clear, and all nature smiles. There is utility as well as beauty in our bridges that fling their arches across bays and rivers. Among the most majestic structures in our country are the massive barriers of steel and concrete, the dams of the far west that hold back the water and then send it out in life-giving streams that already have made fruitful more than 20 million acres of cropland and will within a few years reclaim 22 million more. But more important to America than any of these is a less imposing structure, the American home. Whether it is a house on a village street, a storied mansion in the South, farmhouse of the Middle West, a Long Island estate, a gaily colored stucco gem of the Pacific coast, an apartment mid the millions of a big city, still it is sanctuary. Still it is a stake in the country, an investment that pays dividends in speaking, yes, and in dreaming in the free air of this land of opportunity. In peace, there is a never-ending battle against the farmers busy in the insect world, and so successful that not only do we have more to eat than any other nation on earth, but we grow bounteous surpluses that go to lands across the sea. Take corn, for example, our most valuable crop. From 1930 to 1940 was 37 bushels per acre. By the farmers of a good corn hybrid increased the yield in 1942 to an average of 56 bushels per acre. For the entire country, that meant an increase of 629 million bushels. Truly, our cup runneth over. Just as extraordinary and just as gratifying have been other scientific advances. Take eggs. Improving the breed of laying hens has greatly increased egg production. The average hen of 1920 laid 60 eggs a year. By 1930, the number had been increased to 89, and by 1940, the average was 115 eggs, which certainly comes under the head of quantity production. Contour farming and many another innovation in crop rotation, soil analysis and fertilization are widely accepted as means of conserving moisture, reducing soil erosion, and producing bigger and better crops. The years ahead look good to the farmer.
My great-grandfather started this farm, and for 4 generations we've lived our lives here. This is our land, mister. We've paid for it with our labor and our sacrificing. It's free and clear, and we aim to keep it that way.
That's the talk. Keep America free. When you own land, you own a piece of America itself. That's your capital. But there are other ways of owning a part of this country. Did you ever think that every man who buys a bond or who deposits money in a savings account is a capitalist? Money that goes into a bond or a savings account is used by the government or by the bank, and they pay interest for the use of the money. Same way with life insurance. The company puts your money to work and can use it. Money is just paper or metal, unless it does a job. Go back to the early days of our country. Railroads were few, and the trains were slow. The horse tried hard, but he wasn't any too speedy. The first automobiles were faster, but they were noisy, undependable, and expensive. Americans have always wanted to go places in a hurry and in comfort. So the railway engineers, men like House and Pullman, went to work. And so did the automobile engineers, men like Haynes and Chrysler. When their plans were made, they needed money for factories and raw materials and workers. And where did they get it? Why, they naturally went to the banker and they borrowed money. Whose money? The most capitalists who deposit their money so the bank can put it to work and pay them interest. It's folks like these, folks like us for that matter, who helped and are still helping to build this country. Our taxes, our savings, our money that goes into stocks and bonds, all these add up to the billions invested in our America. And see what happens. With only 7% of the population of the earth, we Americans have built and own nearly 1/3 of all the railroad mileage in the world. And we own more than 3/4 of automobiles in the world. They travel over the finest roads on earth. And we in America have built and half of all the improved. That's the kind of faith we have in the pioneers. And when we're in trouble, they come to our help. Automobile manufacturers were making their finest cars in 1941. The country was at peace. But when the threat of war made it necessary to arm America, the automobile makers and all industry plunged into the gigantic task of producing the tanks and trucks and guns and ships. In your editorial, you might list our vast natural resources. Out of the good earth of our country comes the wealth of precious metals. We own 80% of the world's gold, 60% of the silver, 28% of the copper, 27% of the iron ore, and 26% of the lead. The capacity of our steel mills is 92 million tons a year, and the rest of the world produces only 80 million tons. For all the people on earth, there is an average per person of only 3 acres of land for growing things. But here in the United States, we have nearly 6.5 acres of fertile farmland for every man, woman, and child. Almost twice our requirements for food and clothes. And yet, of the Earth's entire area, we constitute no more than a mere 7%. And of the world's population, Americans make up only 6%. In 1840, a man who was as short-sighted as he was sincere proposed an astounding measure designed to save the country thousands of dollars.
It is obvious, and I am confident all will concur, that we have exhausted our inventiveness. And because there is nothing further for us Americans to devise and patent, no machine nor contraption that could possibly add to our virtue and well-being, I therefore crave your support of a measure to close the patent office.
Close the patent office. And in the next 60 years came inventions that meant jobs for millions of men and women, that meant better living for all the world. Each year, there are 400,000 applications for patents. Close the patent office? Why, we're just getting started here in America. Benjamin Franklin's discovery of the electric properties of lightning was in itself of little importance. But through the inventive genius of American engineers, and the production genius of American management, Franklin's idea was given practical value, and it changed the lives of every person on earth. To American homes came the doorbell, the washer, the refrigerator, the range, the iron, and many another work-saving household appliance. To the field of communication came the telegraph, the telephone, the radio, radar, and television, all for the enlightenment of mankind by the dissemination of knowledge. To the field of transportation came the trolley car, the automobile, the bus, the truck, and the airplane, all helping to free us from our environment for the easy exchange of goods and ideas with our neighbors. A kite and a key in a thunderstorm. And the world was changed by men of vision and determination, by Americans.
Might as well get out and rest a minute.
Okay, Sarge.
This is pretty country, all right.
Sure is. Folks are mighty nice, too. But somehow they don't seem to have any spunk.
Yeah, everybody's all mixed up over here. Kind of going around in circles.
That's one of the things I like about the good old USA. We're going somewhere in a straight line. And that's still the shortest distance between 2 points. Take that road we just came over. It looks like the people, all mixed up.
Over here, they're always switching around from kings and emperors and czars and to these here dictators and what have you. They can't seem to make up their minds.
That's because some big shot's always making up their minds for them. Everything's all cut and dried. If your father's a baker, then you're a baker. If he's a waiter or a clerk or a carpenter, then that's what you are. Over here, there's no chance to take a chance. Believe you me, Sarge, when I get back home, I'm going to declare my independence first thing every morning. I'm going to work wherever I want to, and nobody's going to tell me different. I'm going to go to any church I pick out. Nobody's going to stop me. I'm going to have my say on every doggone thing that goes on in town, and nobody's going to shut me up. I'm going to vote the way I want to, and think the way I want to. I'll probably get married. And if I have a kid, when he grows up, he's going to pick out the kind of work he wants to do, with no high pressure from me or anybody else. Yep, that's the way it looks to me from this distance. America's on the road, and what a sweet one. Plenty of work to do, plenty of fun when you're through. A road with a nice home on the side of it. Radios and automobiles and fishing trips. Hot dogs and cokes, and a wife and a kid and your pals. A road as straight as a string. It leads to school, to church, to a good job. Maybe a business of your own someday. That's the kind of a road to travel. Then we'll be going places.
Well, that's what we'd better do right now, go places.
When enemies across the sea strike at liberty, then there is war. The young men go away to fight for our freedom. And not all of them come back. In times of national stress, we are compelled to abandon many of our hard-won privileges and prerogatives. When boards and bureaus and agencies take away parts of our liberty, we grin and bear it. But when the emergency passes, let us stoutly demand the restoration of our rights. Remember when coffee was scarce and we couldn't have a second cup? Of course we didn't like it, but the coffee shortage wasn't fatal. We lived through it. The big point is this: we gave it up to help win the war, and we got it back. So let it be with all our liberties that must be suspended when our enemies press about us, but must just as surely be restored, that the spirit of freedom shall not perish. Liberty is not just a word, not just a statue, not just a slogan. It is a continuing thought, and its price is eternal vigilance. So let us be on guard against the enemies of liberty. Liberty was the flaming banner that sustained and inspired us on the land, at sea, and in the air, on the beaches, in the jungles, on the deserts, in the mountains, in Africa and Italy, in the Aleutians and the Philippines, at Pearl Harbor and Bataan, in Normandy and New Guinea, in Burma and China. There is part of your editorial on what makes America great, Mr. Editor. The rest of it lies right outside your window. Quote figures on natural resources, but remember, still our treasures and our greatest assets are the boys of the next generation, the men and women of tomorrow, who must be staunchly on guard if our freedom is to survive. Here is America in miniature. Organizing a ball game is not unlike starting a business. Nobody does it for you. You do it yourself. And nobody tells you that you can't. Of course, there are arguments. That's typically American, too. But eventually, it seems, we reach some sort of working agreement. Perhaps you grant a point to your competitor, makes a concession to you. That's good sportsmanship. That's American. Bet I can beat you to second base, and off they go. Competition is congenital in America. We're brought up in the tradition of beating the other fellow, fairly and squarely. In the game of life, every boy has an opportunity to take a swing at the ball. In America, you get a chance to take a chance. The farmer's son may feel the urge to fight the good fight for the freedom of the press. Well, one day the editor's chair will need a new occupant. We're going to need doctors and surgeons to heal our bodies. We're going to need inquiring minds to help keep the patent office open and to make new contributions to science and engineering for the service of all the people. Truly, opportunity in America is limited only by the initiative of the individual. Perhaps one of these boys will be moved to spread the word. In God we trust. We want more architects and painters and musicians to uplift us. We need teachers to keep alive in our youth the principles of freedom. We need women nurses and painters and musicians. And always we need good women who are content to make a career in the noble profession of motherhood. The farms are waiting for young men to till the soil. A seat in Congress that's within the power of an American boy or girl. Why, there's even a chair in the House that the American people give to the man who merits it in the judgment of the electorate. Think of the opportunity that awaits these boys and girls. Each is free to select his chosen field, and each knows in his heart that his life can be what he makes it. Equal opportunity for all. That is the cornerstone of the structure of freedom. Liberty is deep-rooted in all our sacred traditions. It guarantees decent, peaceful living and work well rewarded to all men of good will. And it reaches up and up into the light of a better day.
We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and ensure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America.